You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour. And backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Hi, all, and welcome back to Beyond the Wheel podcast. Today, we are talking about buying an RV. For some of you, this may be your first time purchase, and others, you could be on your third or even more. But we want to share some information with you to help make that buying purchase go as smooth as possible. So let's get on with the show. Hey, Sean, what do you say today?
Hey, Kenny. I think this is a great topic because a lot of people, I think, make a few mistakes when they're buying RVs, especially first-time buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also still a lot of people getting into RVing. So it's important to kind of share our knowledge or experience with other people so that they can learn from our mistakes instead of making them themselves.
Yeah, hopefully this is going to be very, very helpful for anybody listening right now. And I do think that Sean and I have some great tips to share when purchasing an RV. We know people that have purchased an RV and then they purchase a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Maybe with a little bit of the information that we're going to share with you, you won't have to purchase so many RVs to find the one that's perfect for you. We'll do our best.
We've had 2 so far, so
Yeah, I'm still on my first RV, but we're looking for a second one now. We're looking for a towable, but we're planning on keeping our first one. So yeah, I think this is a pretty relative, not relative topic, but I think this is a very relatable topic. I think even people that own an RV are always looking for another RV. They're always thinking about it down in the future. Uh, the bike industry calls it a N1. So anybody that owns a bicycle is always looking for their N1 bicycle, their other bicycle. That's a term that I just learned within like the last year or so, and I thought that was a pretty interesting.
that's funny. I'm looking at another bicycle right now, and I'm also looking at another RV. So they got me.
Yeah, I've been looking around for a new bike also. Like I want to keep my folding bike for the RV, but then I thought maybe I could get a fixed one for just when I'm at home and around town. So it's always fun to shop. Shopping can be fun, but RV shopping can sometimes be stressful. So
That's right.
hopefully we'll take some of the stress out too. And I think first thing that you want to look at when you're shopping for an RV, and this may be obvious and maybe it's not, but you want to decide how you're going to use that RV. How much time are you going to spend in that RV? But you also want to figure out, where do you plan on taking the RV? Are you going to be climbing mountains a lot? Are you going to be down at the beach? Will you be just on weekends? Or are you going to be full timing in it? Do you want to stay at campgrounds, or do you want to be off grid? There's a lot that goes into the process of, shopping. And I think the first thing you want to figure out is exactly how are you going to use this RV, or how do you think you're going to use that RV?
And another tip that we always give people is kind of decide on a normal, regular basis how many people are going to be traveling in the RV.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you may have the idea of bringing kids and their family or something like that, but that might only be once that they come with you. You don't need to invest $200,000 more for a once or twice thing.
I always advise people to purchase the smallest RV they can, but still be comfortable. Even with keeping in mind that maybe, like Sean said, maybe you want your kids to go with you on a trip, or niece and nephew, but it is just a 1 to 2 time a year thing. If you can go to with a smaller RV, that's going to save you money throughout the year in fuel costs and maintenance. It would be just more beneficial. You could probably rent them a cabin for that week that they would like to go RVing with you or camping with you, or even just rent them an RV for a week, may be cheaper than purchasing a larger RV because, like I said, you don't have maintenance, fuel cost, insurance is going to be higher, and your overall purchase price is going to be higher.
Storage might even be higher because sometimes they charge you
Storage.
by the foot.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, that is your first goal is to really determine how you're going to use this and what you really need out of it. What are you trying to get out of this new RV?
That's a really good tip though, Kenny, is to buy the smallest you can without compromising anything that you absolutely need in it.
Yeah, yeah. Get your needs out of the way and then determine the size from there. So a smaller size RV is going to be helpful because one, you're going to get into campgrounds easier. You're going to find spots easier. You're going to be able to back it into spots a little easier, but also on just your daily drives and your travels too. If you're out and you want to explore a roadside attraction, it's going to be easier to pull something smaller over and take a look at something. It's also going to be easier to get in and out of gas stations with a smaller vehicle. Overall, the smaller vehicle is going to give you, I would say, an extra layer of comfort while on the go. True, a larger RV may give you extra comfort when you're parked and set up. But again, that goes back to how are you using the RV? Are you going to be traveling a lot? Or are you going to be parked a lot?
Yeah, and also not just easier to back into campgrounds, but some campgrounds have size restrictions like national and state parks. If you're over a certain length, you just can't get in there. So I think that's a really good tip that you had.
Yeah, yeah, the size of an RV is super, super important. You may find it maybe difficult to figure out, well, what do I actually need? And this is going to lead us into another tip. I believe when you're going shopping for an RV and you're looking around, you got the idea of like what you want, play house almost. Like go in the RV, kind of picture, all right, waking up in the bed, lay down in the bed even, wake up in the bed and figure out, all right, what's the first thing I do? Is it go to the bathroom? Go to the bathroom. Then is it shower and change? Try to figure out, well, where would I hang my clothes at? Where would I put all my shoes? Where would I put my, what drawers for my underwear and my t-shirts? And then pretend to make a meal. Like, what do I want to store in the pantry? Is it a large enough pantry or is it way too big of a pantry for what I would need on a RV trip? And then where would you sit for your meals? Where would you sit and watch your TV? Sabrina and I did that a lot. We would play house, and you'd be surprised just how quickly you walk into a place and be like, "All right, I'm gonna wake up now, and I want to grab my towel." And I was like, "Oh, where would my towel even go?" You start thinking about, "All right, I'm getting dressed. Where would I? Okay, there's drawers here for me to get dressed, but there's no place for me to actually stand and get dressed, not with any privacy." So we would knock out floor plans really quick that way, be like, "All right, this just doesn't work. This pantry's not big enough for all the food we wanna bring," or it doesn't have a wardrobe. At the time, Sabrina was working a lot, so she had nice clothing that she had to wear for work, so we needed a wardrobe where she could hang her clothes. That's probably not the norm for RVing, but it was nice. It was important for us that she had a wardrobe just for her clothing, so that would knock out RVs pretty quickly.
Yeah, and if it makes a difference on if you're a full-time traveler or weekend
Mhm.
traveler only. So yeah, those are important tips. I guess the second biggest thing that you need to consider is the budget.
Yeah.
It
It's a
it
tough
can
one.
it's not a cheap hobby to have. Not only the purchase price, but then you have maintenance, you have insurance, you have storage costs if you can't store it at your house, you have fuel costs, you have like, I'm in Virginia where we have this personal property tax that we pay every year. You pay that tax based on the value of your vehicles. It can get quite expensive owning an RV. So figure out what your budget is going in, your budget and your why and your must haves. And then that'll make your life a little bit easier as long as you stick to that while the salesman's showing you all these high end fancy RVs.
Yeah. We have that same rule here, I guess you could say. We also pay property tax on our RVs out here in Arizona, and it's pricey. It really adds up from year to year. And you had mentioned something too, Sean, like when you're going in and talking with the salespeople. I also suggest, because they're going to show you everything, and I wouldn't say that they're all pushy, but obviously, the more expensive the vehicle, the better it looks for them and sale wise. I always recommend shopping with somebody, and maybe even shopping with somebody doesn't even really know too much about RVs. They don't even really need to know much about RVs. In fact, maybe even bring a naysayer with you, somebody that's not even really interested in RVing, because they'll help keep you grounded. Because I think it's very easy to go to the dealers, talk with them, and they paint this picture of, "Oh, this is gonna be amazing for you guys." And it is, it's a lot of fun, but they will paint only the good side of RVing. So it may be good to have a friend with you that is like, "Do you really wanna be emptying these tanks? Do you really want, this kinda setup?" You guys maybe they'll be realistic with you and be like, "You guys aren't even really outdoorsy people, so you might be spending a lot more time in the RV than you think," or vice versa. Maybe they'll say, "Well, you don't need that much space because you guys like to be outside all the time." So, I think having almost like a voice of reason with you, because it's easy, I think, for us to look at an item, especially like an RV, picture how we're going to use it, and then almost be enchanted by it or fantasize about it, and really kind of convince ourselves that, yeah, this will work for us. This is what we need, when really it's not. I mean, it's just over the top sometimes.
Yeah, and then the other thing you need to consider is buying new versus used.
Hmm.
I guess we can talk about it a little bit. I've only bought new, and just the second one I wasn't intending to buy new, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. The first one I bought new just because I didn't know that there was much of a used market at the time,
Mm.
going into it kind of ignorant about RV sales and stuff. So that was probably a mistake. Going in was buying new when there's tons of used RVs that are severely discounted and good value.
Yeah, they definitely depreciate quickly. And I did buy mine used. We were looking at new only at first, because when you do look at used market, sometimes it's tough depending on how old the RV is. They have weird odors. Somebody might own a pet, and that gives it a strange odor. It's a big vehicle. It requires a lot of maintenance. So if it's many years older, you may be afraid, well, what if this person didn't really take care of it all that well? Also, with new, you get a warranty. There's reasons to be afraid of going used. I would say Sabrina and I did purchase used, but the vehicle that we purchased, our RV, was only 6 months old. The people that bought it, actually, if this episode was out earlier, they might not have made this mistake, but they bought it, took it out on one trip, hated it, and returned it for a diesel pusher. Ours is just a small Class A gas coach. Ours was still under warranty for 6 months. It was barely broken in. It only had like 4,000 miles on it. So, even though ours was used, it was barely used, and we probably saved something like $30,000, I think. I can be pretty honest with you guys. So 2017, we bought our Vista, which is a 28-foot Class A. We bought it for $79,000, and that was taxes, tags, like out the door was $79,000. You'd never get that price today. But even then, that was a very good price for something that was only 6 months old with 4,000 miles on it. If you are going to look in the used market, I recommend fairly used, almost new. I think something within a year or so. The other good advantage that people may not think about when buying used is, because of that warranty, the person that owned it, say you bought a year-old RV, that person should have taken care of all those warranty issues in that first year. That means they went through all the hassle of sitting in shops, dropping it off, waiting for it to get fixed. So they kind of went through all those pain points of their new RV. That may help you by giving you more time on the road to actually enjoy it, almost like a shakedown period. They went through that first year shakedown period and found everything wrong with that RV in that first year, and maybe that'll help you. I'm not trying to sway anybody in either direction. Sabrina and I are now shopping for an RV, and our next RV could very well be new, just depending on what's out there. I would say the big advantage of new, especially for Sabrina and I while we're shopping right now, is that we can order the vehicle or get the vehicle with all the options that we want, without getting options that we don't want or don't need. Like when we bought our Vista, it had a drop down bunk. We bought it used. We didn't really need the drop down bunk, but it was there, so it's kind of already worked in that price. We were buying used, so you get a good price on it anyway. But that was something that we were like, well, we don't really need the drop down bunk. At least with new, you get exactly what you want. I mean, you're practically picking all the features you want when you buy new.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing going back to budget is you need to decide if you're gonna finance it or not. I'm not a huge fan of financing an RV just because it's not a necessity, it's more of a toy, and so it's better to not finance those, and, like, they depreciate, like, 25% in the first year, so you're gonna never get out of it what you put into it, and then if you're tagging, interest on top of that, that's even more money that you're losing in that depreciation.
It's already expensive enough. And then once you add interest on it, you're really going to pay, you're going to overpay for it by the time you do a payment on it. And I know it is expensive and it's probably difficult to come up with the cash to buy, but yeah, I also agree to try your best to pay in cash, because what's going to happen is, one, you're going to be paying on something monthly all the time, whether you're using it or not. And then what if you do start getting maintenance bills on it? If things start to break, now you're paying a payment, plus you got to come up with extra cash to make these payment or I'm sorry, to make these repairs. And you're going to feel overwhelmed, and you could possibly be like, you know what, this is not working at all for me, and just get rid of it. And now you're going to take a hit on your resale when you try to sell it again. So yeah, if you can't pay cash for the whole thing, at least put down as big of a down payment as possible, because like Sean, what was it, Sean, 25%
Yeah, in the
depreciation
first
in the
year.
first year? Yeah, these things take a huge hit. I mean, they just take a huge hit. It's not an investment. It's not like
And
house property.
yeah, and don't finance it for 20 years like you can. That adds a lot more cost to it. I would pick the lowest amount of financing available, if you have to finance it and just work your butt off to pay it off.
And I know that's really attractive for people. Like I work a lot of shows and I don't do sales. I'm with the marketing team most of the time. But that's one of the biggest questions people ask me is like, how long can I finance this for? And it, like you said, Son, you can finance an RV usually for about 20 years. I mean, that's a, I mean, that's a lifetime.
You won't have it for 20 years,
You
I can
probably
almost
will not.
guarantee.
That is true. Your
Yeah.
your loan will last longer than the RV most likely. Because I
And
think
that Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, I think the average for people is, 3 years, I think is on the high end for people to actually keep their RVs. I think it's actually more common that people trade in their RV within the first year, but I think the average is about 3 years.
Yeah, and then also at the dealership, especially if you buy new, they're gonna try and sell you some add-on stuff like extended warranty. And I think my recommendation after doing this for so many years is to shop around to see if you can get a better aftermarket extended warranty than what they offer you at the dealership. It's definitely good to have item, especially if you don't like doing a lot of maintenance yourself, but definitely shop around and don't just accept that the dealership is going to give you the best price on an extended warranty.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Especially for anybody that's out there that's not really a DIYer, you're gonna want that extended warranty. I'm very anti-extended warranty, like, if you're at a Best Buy or anything like that, I always turn down the extended warranties on every item. But the RV is one thing that I do believe is good to have an extended warranty, because there's just so many components, and you're driving them down the road, they get shooken up down the highways and stuff like that. You might be surprised how much maintenance goes into an RV, especially like the more you, well, either way, really. I was gonna say the more you use it, it gets worn out and used, but an RV just sitting isn't always great for them either. And there's gonna be maintenance no matter which way you go. There's always going to be maintenance involved in an RV. So yeah, I think the extended warranties can usually pay for themselves. And I agree with Sean. The dealer's going to try to throw it into your financing. They're going to try to sell it to you right there. Definitely shop around. There's a few companies out there you can shop around. Not so much a plug for wholesale warranties, but they do let you kind of customize your warranty for your needs. And I think that's great. I would recommend, if you're not going to go with wholesale warranties, look for a company that does that. So this way you're not paying for something that you're not going to use. An extended warranty is great. We had that on our RV when we bought it. We did buy it from the dealership. We bought the warranty from the dealership. This was our first time buy. We didn't even know that you could shop around for warranties at the time. And it worked out in our advantage. We actually broke even with our warranty, but that's me being a heavy DIYer and doing as much as I possibly can because for the most part, I'm just trying to keep the RV out of the shop so that we were living in it at full time. So I was just doing my best to keep it out of a shop, and we still wound up breaking even on it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I wasn't, yeah, if I wasn't fixing anything on my own, we would have made money off that.
A lot of stuff breaks.
Yep. Yep, I just repaired my step motor, for the second time from ownership. It's not bad. The step motors lasted 7 years, but it's Sean and I always say it's always something.
Always something.
Lot of components.
So I guess we now need to let people know the different types of
Yeah,
RVs that there are out there. And I have only owned fifth wheels, which is a towable. So you need to have a vehicle to tow them with. But fifth wheels are nice because you have that weight sort of sitting over the center of your axles of of your truck. Helps with turning, helps with parking, helps with weight distribution, all that stuff. Makes it a little easier to drive, I think, on the highway than a travel trailer, which is connected at the bumper, so the whole center of weight and everything is completely different on a travel trailer, and I feel like you get more sway when trucks go by and when you have a travel trailer, like, they just seem to have a little more movement than a fifth wheel does, but travel trailers, you can get down to pretty small.
yeah.
Most fifth wheels are like I don't know that there's many below, like, 25 feet. That's a big difference.
Yeah, I think cost comes into play too. I think you can get a bumper pull for a much lower starting price than you could for a fifth wheel. I always think of bumper pulls and travel trailers that are bumper pulls as like entry level. I think that's usually pretty popular with the younger generation, younger crowd. Not saying that older people. I mean, my next RV probably will be a bumper pull, but for the most part, I picture them as being more of like that first time buyer, young family, and then if they enjoy the towable life, they go to a fifth wheel because I think a fifth wheel when you walk into them has more of a home like feel to them than a travel trailer like bumper pool would have.
Yeah, higher ceilings.
Yep.
Uh,
Ceiling fans
yeah.
usually, and yeah, you get a more high end touches in a fifth wheel, from what I've noticed anyway over the years. And then of course you have your drivables, which is a class A, B, or C. I've only owned a Class A, but I've been lucky enough to take a Class B out and a Class C out for long periods of time. They are very different, even though they're all motorized. So, a Class A, tons of cargo, tons of water capacity, tons of space on the inside, tons of storage. But going back to, smaller can sometimes be better. It's not so easy to pull over a big Class A to see a roadside attraction. You might not even be able to fit your vehicle in a parking lot if you got a Class A and you're towing like a small little car or something like that. Whereas a Class B is pretty much a van. You're much smaller, you're much more nimble. You can drive in traffic, you can do the speed limit. You have no problem pulling over into anywhere and parking in a normal parking spot. But now your water capacities are much smaller, cargo capacity is smaller, and your storage overall is a lot smaller. So it kind of goes back to like how do you plan on using your RV? How much time are you planning on spending inside of it? How much time are you planning on driving? And where are you planning on going with it? I would say a Class C falls somewhere in between an A and a B, especially something like a View Navion or an Echo. These are Winnebago products, but vehicles of that size, they're now giving you more storage than a Class B, more water tank capacity as a Class B. You can almost fit them in a regular parking spot, but they are also allowing you to go, sleep a family of 4 still in them and kind of park almost anywhere, not as much as that Class B, but definitely more maneuverable than that Class A. So they're almost like a sweet spot size, I would say. And again, it just depends on how many people are traveling with you, where you want to go with them, how far you're going to be off grid with them.
And also, Kenny, another thing to consider with those is, are you bringing a tow vehicle,
Mhm.
a towed vehicle, and what is the weight of that vehicle? Because they'll all have different tow capacities.
Yeah. A Class C has a great typically, Class C has a great tow capacity, usually over 5,000 pounds. A Class A gas motorhome is typically 5,000 is its max. A lot of times they'll say 5,000 pounds, but that's really just the hitch rating. You got to take a look at your overall weight for your vehicle and your towing, but with the vehicle that you're towing as well, overall weight. A lot of times Class A gas coaches are closer to 4,000 pounds, even though they would like to tell you it's 5,000. And then a diesel pusher, they can be 7,000, 10,000 pounds for towing. And it seems to me anyway that the larger the vehicle, the more common it is to tow with that vehicle. So you don't see Class B vans towing too much. If they're towing something, it's not usually another vehicle. It's usually a trailer or something like that, just for a little bit of extra storage. Whereas a Class A, it's very rare to see a Class A diesel pusher or gas coach not towing a car behind it because once you're parked, you can set up, you got 3 slides out, your jacks are down. You don't wanna keep breaking that up every time, trying to pack up and move it. It's just easier to have an additional tow car with you. Kinda similar to, I guess, like, the fifth wheel, but you're using your truck. Your tow vehicle then becomes your vehicle that you can go out and run for groceries and explore in a smaller vehicle because you're not going to want to break up and set up your fifth wheel either every time you want to move or
Yeah.
go out, I should say, and look for something.
Yep. And then there's 2 other sort of major categories, and those are pop-up trailers, I guess. We call them pop-ups, which is essentially a tent on wheels. Sometimes you'll have a sink in there, an air conditioner, maybe, and sometimes a toilet, but it's usually in the kitchen area,
Yeah.
and it's usually a cassette toilet, usually no shower in there. And then you have a truck camper, which nowadays, those things are getting really nice. Some of them even have 3 slides now, so you it's got some great capacities, a lot of space, but you need to have a truck that can handle that kinda weight in the bed, because, like I said, you can get small ones, but there's also some very massive truck campers.
Yeah, I like the truck camper idea because it is that small, compact, easy to drive, park anywhere. And like Sean said, some of them are. Was it New Camp that we saw at the Hershey show, Sean, with the 3 slides? That was really
Yeah.
nice. I can't remember. I know it was made by New Camp and it has its own, almost its own name, and I can't remember what
Yeah,
it's
I
called,
can't remember it either.
but it was nice. And the truck campers are surprisingly roomy inside once they all pop out. You would never know that you were sitting in the back of a bed of a truck, really. I really like the truck campers, but they're also getting very expensive when you go up that way, and the cost of a truck can be very expensive. But
Very expensive.
yeah, but I think truck campers and Class B vans, man, they're perfect. I think for couples. I think a Class C, a Class A, and the fifth wheels, they're good for families and pets. Even a van, a couple and maybe one dog. I would say to me personally, that's pushing it. I think that's as crowded as you would want to get in a van. Whereas if you had a fifth wheel or a Class A diesel, you could probably have a family of 4 and 2 dogs, and you still have plenty of room and spread out. So, yeah, that's another thing to kinda think about is not just how big is your family, but are you bringing pets along with you too? Because even my small dog that's only 26 pounds, Belle, she takes up a lot of space. She moves a lot. She's hyper and she's likes to be, where you are. So even small dogs still take up surprisingly a big amount of space. You also have things like their food and their toys and their medicines and all that will take up space too. So definitely keep your pets in mind when you're shopping for an RV. In fact, a lot of people shop for RVs because they do have pets and campgrounds and RVing is incredibly pet friendly. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
And we mentioned the major classes of RVs, so the class A, B, C, travel trailer, fifth wheel, pop-up, truck camper. But within those, there's a total array of various floor plans,
Mhm.
body styles, chassis, all that is it varies greatly within those categories.
What seems to have the most amount of floor plans is the bumper pool travel trailers. There's sometimes that I will see these travel trailers and they have like 7 to 8 different floor plans. Compared that to like maybe a class A motorhome for something that is the same length would only have maybe 2, maybe possibly 3 different floor plans. So with that travel trailer or that bumper pool, you may be getting different floor plans that will work better for you because maybe you'd find a travel trailer that has bunk beds that work for you and an outside kitchen. Just a lot more variety on floor plans in the towable section rather than the motorized.
Yeah, so definitely do a lot of shopping and exploring before you make a decision.
Yeah.
Then we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but you gotta make a list of your must-have features versus your nice-to-haves, and really search for your must-have features. And this varies by person or family that's using the RV, and that's why there's so many different types and so many different floor plans and options, is because they have something for everybody. You just gotta take the time to find it. And a lot of times you will go look at these RVs and you'll find one that has the must-haves, but then you'll look at one that has, like, maybe a dishwasher or a washer and dryer that wasn't on your must-have list, but then it gets you thinking, and that's why I think you need to never go alone, but go with somebody that can hold you accountable to your list, because it's the must-haves that are really important. The nice new shiny thing shouldn't sway you away and cause you to spend a lot more money when it's just not something that you need or will use. So,
Yeah.
like, one thing is a lot of people think they want an outdoor TV, but once you go out camping and you're sitting out there and there's bugs or noise or, there's lots of things that will interrupt your TV watching. I think the most people I see without watching outdoor TVs is, Disney Fort Wilderness.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one place I see people watching a lot of outdoor TV, but every other campground, you hardly ever see people out watching their outdoor TV.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder why that is. Why are so many people watching TV outside of Fort Wilderness, but nowhere else? You're right, Sean. I never thought about that, but you're right about that. I would also say you kind of want to pay attention to the things that you don't see also in an RV. That's very important, like water capacity, your holding tanks. That's going to determine how long you can be without a campground for. So again, it goes back to how do you plan on using your RV? If you're going to be staying at a lot of campgrounds, then the holding capacity may not be all that important to you because then you just need enough water to travel from home to the campground. But if you're planning on doing a lot of dry camping or boondocking or somewhere that you won't have water connections or full hookups and sewer, then holding tanks become pretty important very fast. So when you're looking at these things, and like Sean said, you might see a dishwasher, you might see a washer and dryer. Just think about how much water that dishwasher, the washer and dryer are going to use. I would say typically to have a washer and dryer, you have to have full hookups because it's going through a ton of water. Just think about again, where will you be using this RV?
Yeah, and also, do you need, like, solar panels on the top?
Mhm.
Some RVs come with solar panels and lithium batteries. Is that important to how you're gonna use it? I would say the lithium batteries are important no matter what because they're just great to have. I mean, it's a day and night difference between lead acid batteries and lithium batteries, but things like solar panels and generators. Do you need a generator? Do you not need a generator? All that stuff. Try and figure it out before you go.
Yeah, I would say lithium batteries nowadays is a must. Just the fact that one, they're gonna last a lot longer for you, but really it's a maintenance thing for me that I don't have to worry about killing the battery. Even if I use all my battery capacity, I know I didn't damage the battery. Whereas the lead acid, you got to be very careful. You always want to keep your lead acid battery above 50%. And it's just an extra thing that you got to think about while you're out. And it's just a hassle. So yeah, I love Sean and I feel like we were very early adapters to lithium battery. I think we both kind of jumped on that lithium battery idea. I think we understood it right away, be like, oh man, this is great
Yeah,
type of thing.
I switched for the same reason, Kenny. I was terrible at the battery maintenance.
Yeah, adding the water and checking your water fluids and making sure you didn't go below 50%. It just there's enough things to do maintenance on the RV that I was like, let's get rid of these batteries. I killed our lead acid batteries in under the first 2 years that we owned our RV, and I was like, we got it. There's got to be something better. And then we found our Battleborn batteries. But lithium now, I believe, is becoming more and more of a standard when I'm working shows and stuff like that. Not just at Winnebago, but other manufacturers across the board are now including lithium as the standard. It's not
That's
even
good.
an option anymore. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
that's good.
cool.
So once you find the one that you think you want, you're at the dealership and you're going to take a look at it. A couple of things I would mention right away is that if it's a drivable, you'll probably get to test drive it or one that's exactly like it. If it's a towable, you don't get that experience of being able to hook it up and drive it around to see how it feels. At least never in my experience. There could be places that do it that I've just never been, but I've never seen somebody test drive a towable. But definitely test drive if it's drivable or if you can test drive it, I would do that to see how comfortable you are with it out on the road because it can be intimidating until you get the hang of it.
For sure. And also when you're looking at these, this is now that you've kind of narrowed it down. You think you got the one that you want, definitely test drive it. You're also going to want the dealer to show you how everything works in it. You know, the water, electricity, slide outs if it has slide outs, jacks if it has jacks. And you want to see, is all that easy to use? You know, you want something that you're comfortable using, just like driving it. You know, is it comfortable for you to set up? You know, are you down on your hands and knees underneath the RV trying to attach to a sewer? Or is it in a cargo bay where it's up a little higher and maybe you're not down crunching on your back and your knees as much? So definitely once you get the layout right, you get the chassis that you want, you get all that, then really start taking a look at seeing how is this going to be for everyday use when setting up and breaking down. Because you'd be surprised just how different every RV is and where they even put your water bay and your sewer bay and all that. There's a lot of differences out there.
Yeah, and I would just verify with the dealer that the water capacities on their spec sheet are what you
Mhm.
think they are, and also the propane, if it's got propane, how big is the propane tank, and, just verify all that on the actual spec sheet for the RV because, like we said, there's tons of different models and floor plans, and you might just have the wrong, floor plan compared to what you were looking for. So, definitely verify everything as far as what you can't see, like Kenny said, verify it all before, you commit to that RV. And then also, I guess the other thing I would do even before I went to a dealer or to a place to actually look at it is I would watch YouTube videos on reviews of that particular model and see what other people are saying, and that will help you know what questions to ask, before you decide to buy it.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you know more about a particular RV floor plan and model than the dealer or the salesperson. And I would say don't knock them too hard for that because you've probably done more research than they have on that one particular model that you're interested in, whereas they are selling multiple brands. It's very rare that you go to a dealer where they only sell one brand. So they're dealing with multiple brands, different floor plans, totally different setups. You know, they're selling, they could be selling the fifth wheels, the towables, the motorized, everything. So they're not going to know every little detail about every single RV. So if you are chatting with a salesperson and they maybe give you wrong numbers, they may not be giving you wrong numbers on purpose, trying to inflate anything. They might have just made it. It's easy to make a mistake with so many different floor plans and so many different specs. there's a lot of options coming out, just like we were talking about earlier, lithium and lead acid batteries and solar packages. And, there's inverter packages and there's different cargo capacities, different water capacities. So it's a lot for them to remember. And that's why it's so important that you need to, like Sean said, look at the spec sheet and verify that these numbers are correct. The only red flag that I can really think of, or something to maybe stay away from with a dealer, is if you feel as if they're pressuring you. There's really no reason to be pressured at an RV dealership. If somebody's telling you, "Oh, this isn't going to last on the," especially if you're shopping new, "This won't be here forever," type of thing. It's a popular model. It's going to sell by next week, and you're not going to find that's you'll find it somewhere else. Like, they're making more RVs every day, type of thing. So that's the only thing I would really be concerned about when talking to a dealer, is that they're not being too pushy. It's a big purchase, and they should give you the time, the breathing space, the breathing room that you need to make this purchase. You don't want to rush into a potentially over $100,000 purchase and feel rushed.
Yeah, and even like simple things to look for, like, does it have a spare tire or not? You'd
Yeah.
be surprised how many don't have a spare
Don't.
tire. That's important to know before you're driving down the road and get a flat. It's important to know if there's a spare or not, because that'll kind of dictate on roadside repair kind of stuff. And will you need it towed somewhere that you can get a tire? So really think through everything before you buy it, and talk to some people. Like, again, YouTube's a great resource, or even Reddit's a great resource for people that own that particular model. You can leave them a comment or ask them a question, or post a question in the forum for that particular RV, and ask people what they think about it, what the downsides are, what the benefits are. Don't rely on that dealership to tell you everything, because like Kenny said, they've got tons of different models. You really need to do a lot of the research yourself.
When you are shopping dealership versus like a private sale versus a show, I'd say use it all. I mean, don't limit yourself to where you're shopping for an RV. I do believe if you're buying new, a show is probably your best bet because you're going to get typically a show price. If you're buying used, I would say private sale or dealership could really go either way. I mean, you might get a better price with a private sale, but you're limited to what you can look at. And I don't want to tell anybody not to buy a private sale or try to lead you in any way, but I think maybe for used, there's a bit of an advantage of going to a dealership. Yes, you are going to pay a little bit more, but if you were to have an issue with that RV, you should be able to take it back to that dealer and they should cover it up to a certain X amount of time and do the repairs for you. Whereas a private sale, you're going to be kind of out of luck, I think, in that sense. I don't think you're going to bring it back to, say, Bob or Jane and say, "Hey, you know what? I just bought this from you 2 weeks ago and I'm having an issue with it. Can you guys fix this for me?" Now, that's not to say that maybe they would help you or not, but with a dealership, you should be able to get that after the sale help. I would love to hear. I'm sure this is a very controversial thing that I just said. So if you guys got a comment for us, please leave it down. Have you bought private sale? What's been your experience with private sale? I've only bought from dealers with RVs. I've never bought a private sale RV. And when Sabrina and I were shopping, we didn't even look at private sale. It was only dealerships only that we were shopping from.
With the show, at an RV show, if you see the one that you want there, you don't necessarily need to buy it the first day of the show. So, like, as an example, with our Arctic Fox, we found it at a show and we looked at it the first day. We thought we really liked it. We went the second day and spent a couple hours in it, still didn't buy it, and went on the last day, and we got a much better price than if we would have got it on the first day. You do run the risk of it selling, but if you can hold out, you might get an even better deal on the last day of the show versus the first day of the show.
Yeah, it's great a place too. You, Sean, you actually bought the show model, the one that was
Yes.
actually there at the show, because a lot of times too, you'll get a show price. You're not always buying that model one, but you'll still get a show price, but probably not as good of a price as Sean got for actually purchasing the one that was there because that probably helped them. They didn't have to tow it all the way back to wherever they brought it from. They knew that it was going to sell, right there. Did you sit down and
No,
do
they
paperwork,
did.
everything?
They did take it back
Oh, they
to the
did?
dealership and prep it just
Oh,
like
good.
just like if you were there, but we got a great deal. Those shows aren't the dealerships go to the shows to sell. They don't go to the dealer they don't go to the shows to show.
Right.
So that's the difference. And so if you can hold out to the last day, you can probably get a better deal because they really wanna make as many sales as possible.
They're willing to wheel and deal at a show much more than just going to a dealership on a normal day. Yeah, they're much more eager, that's the word, eager to sell at a show. But tips for negotiating. Man, I am terrible at negotiating. We actually, when we bought our RV, we bought it for the advertised price. We did a great price, but my tip for negotiating, this is how we negotiated. We didn't really negotiate. We went on RV Trader and looked at every single price across the country for the vehicle that we wanted. And then when we found this one that we bought was in Ohio, they were $10,000 less than everybody else's advertised price, and we're like, "Oh, that's our negotiating right there. We're getting a better deal just by buying it." Now we did have to travel to Ohio. We were in Virginia at the time, but it didn't cost us $10,000 in fuel to go that way, and the dealer that we bought it from had a no haggle policy anyway. But their price is their price. And that's probably why they're listing their price so much lower than everybody else. And they were great. They did a full walkthrough with us, made sure everything worked. They also gave us a walkthrough just to show us how everything worked too. They spent, I would say, over an hour, maybe 2 hours with Sabrina and I just walking through the RV, making sure that we were comfortable before we drove off the lot of just how everything worked. What was also very important to us is that we hired an RV inspector to look at that RV before we purchased it because it was out of state and because it was our first RV purchase. I would still, even now, after 8 years of RVing, I would still hire an inspector to look over our RV before we made another purchase. That was so helpful for us, and the dealer had no problems with it either. We called the dealer and said, "Hey, we're very interested in purchasing this. We live in Virginia. We see that you guys are in Ohio. We'd like to send an inspector out, take a look at this." And they said, "Sure, no problem. We'll bring it out. We'll hook it up to water. He can test everything he wants to test." What was great for that is that he found a couple items wrong with the unit. Wasn't anything deal breaker wise. Gave us a full report, photos, everything that he found wrong with it. We submitted it to the dealer. The dealer said, "Okay, we can take care of these problems." They fixed everything that was on that list. And when we showed up, the RV was, in perfect condition. Everything that was highlighted in red was taken care of. It was little things like a screw from the towel rack. I mean, our inspector really went through like a with a with a you really combed this thing. I'm trying to remember some of the other items that he found. They were all so little uh, issues with the RV that we felt pretty comfortable. I think it was couple screws from the awning that were missing. It was mostly loose screws or missing screws. So the dealer had no problem just, going back over it and fixing these problems.
Even with a new RV, it's a good idea to get an inspector to come in there and take a look. And like Kenny said, I think a lot of dealerships are getting used to inspectors coming and allow them to come in and take a look at the RV before you buy it. I highly recommend it too.
Yeah, just like, the first year of RV ownership, that warranty period, I consider that shakedown period. A lot of times these RVs are being built mostly in Indiana, but then they're being shipped across the country. So while they're being shipped all across the country, that they're kind of going through their first initial shakedown period. Maybe something wasn't tightened well enough. Maybe the glue wasn't on there properly. So, yeah, I think even a new RV, you should have a inspector, some type of certified RV inspector to look over that RV. And the same thing that we mentioned earlier by having a friend, that RV inspector doesn't care if you purchase this RV or not. They're just there to look for problems. They're not going in there and be like, "Oh, look at all this shiny new material." Like they are there for work and they are not going to sugarcoat it for you. They're not going to tell you you know, oh, this was a beautiful RV. It just looks so nice. I would buy it just because of the color, type of thing. They have no stake in this purchase at all. They're getting paid either way. If you buy it or not, they get paid. So I think they're another good source to keep you grounded and just tell you the facts about a particular unit.
It's only a few $100 to get them to come out, and it could save you tons of money.
Yeah, and for us, especially because we were at out of state purchase, we being in Virginia and that we purchased in Ohio, the fact that this guy, we found an inspector in Ohio. So, it's in his own backyard. He was able to go to the dealership. We didn't have to travel all that way, get there, and then be disappointed by something. So it helped us for an out of state purchase to have a professional actually look at it. And we bought from a company called Schaefer's RV and Truck. I think that's how you say it. And like I said, they were very, very accommodating. And this was 8 years ago before RV inspection was really a popular thing. So I would say if you run into any issues, if you want to have an RV inspected and the dealer says, oh, we'd rather you not, or that's not something we do, that would make me nervous to purchase. Like,
Run
why are
away.
you, yeah, why are you upset, or why are you trying to discourage us from having a third party inspector come on and take a look at this RV, especially an RV that's older, 5, 10 years older. And they're like, no, we'd rather you not inspect it. I bet you that happens. I don't know if that happens for sure, but I bet you there's companies that try to talk you out of it. And that would be a red flag for me.
Or even if they say, "We already inspected it." You wanna have an independent person look at it.
Yeah. Because they do. All the dealers will inspect an RV, even brand new. So that's just part of the system. Manufacturer builds the RV, they ship it to the dealership. Typically, that dealership then goes through another inspection for that vehicle because, like I said, who knows what happened on the road while they were driving it from Indiana to California or to Seattle. So they'll look over a vehicle and make sure that everything is still working the way it should. But I would still advise a third party inspector to then look at it again because the third party inspector is looking for things like caulking issues, power issues, plumbing issues. Like they're really going into it. They're pressure testing. They're doing propane testing. Like they're really testing it.
So I think some tips, some final advice that we could give, and we've mentioned a lot of this already, is number 1, go to RV shows and, explore all the different models and floor plans and classes of RV, and really spend some time in there, especially the ones that you like, really spend some time just being in it while you're there at the show. And then another tip that we haven't mentioned, but is something we'll always do from now on, I guess, is rent before we buy.
Mhm.
We just did that to decide on what kind of RV we were going to get next because we wanted something smaller, but we weren't sure it would be comfortable, and so we rented one that was the size and decided if it was something we could get used to or not. So that's very, very important, I think. Rent before you buy for sure. And then like we said earlier, join the RV forums, particularly for the brand and model that you're looking for and see what people are saying about it. Most also have a Facebook group and then you can find YouTube videos on it and people always leave comments there as well. So just see what the current owners think about that particular RV, and you'd be surprised if people are happy or unhappy, they'll let you know in the forums for sure. And you can also see what the common problems are with that unit. Definitely learn the basics before you go out on long trips or anything. That's like if you have a towable, learn how to tow with either a bumper pull or a fifth wheel. Learn how to tow if you're towing a vehicle, learn how to do that and get comfortable with it before you go out on a long trip. Learn all the things in your RV, like how to level it, how to dump your tanks, how to hook up your water and power. All that stuff is very important to know before you take it out on the road and then you don't know how to do something that could make or break your trip, actually.
I totally agree with Sean on everything he just said. I definitely want to kind of promote that rental again because that's what Sabrina and I did 8 years ago. We rented a Class A motorhome just to see if it would work for us because we were at that stage, we were pretty sure that's what we were gonna buy was a Class A motorhome. So we rented one, it was a 36-foot, Class A, and we loved the Class A experience, but that was what decided, all right, 30 we don't need 36 feet. So we ended up with 28 feet, but it was a great learning experience. You learn so much so fast when you're actually in it and doing your hookups. Watch plenty of videos to learn those, how to connect and do your connections and make sure everything's secure. I also wanna say rental wise too, if you're not, like, close to purchasing, but you're still, wanna get an idea of, "Well, can I drive a big vehicle?" I like U-Haul and Ryder because you can rent a box truck for much less than you can rent an RV just to get the driving experience down and see, "Well, can I drive this 26-foot box truck?" Unfortunately, a 26-foot box truck drives very similar to a Class A motorhome. It'll still give you that idea of the swinging out and everything, and also at a Ryder U-Haul company, you can rent trailers. So if you already own a truck, rent the trailer and see what it's like just to tow something. Try to back it into a spot and see just how different it is backing in a spot with a trailer attached. And again, it'll be much more reasonable price than, say, a RV rental company. But absolutely go with the RV rental company once you get a little closer to purchasing time. This is just for drivability experience.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say it's so expensive to rent an RV. Why would I want to waste my money renting it? And the reason is you're not wasting your money. It could actually save you tens of thousands of dollars if you take it out and notice that, oh, this is not what we thought it was, or this one won't work for us, or we absolutely hate RV travel. It's really important, I think, to rent before you buy.
It is money well spent. You may find maybe you like it, maybe your spouse likes it, and your pet hates it. And now you can't travel anywhere because your dog or your cat doesn't is terrified of being on the road in a big vehicle. Like there's a lot that could be wrong that you don't think about until you actually rent it and take it out.
And then I guess just know that no matter what you buy, once you're RVing, I think we said this already, maybe Kenny, it's 3 to 5 years, you're getting another
Hmm.
RV. Know that it's not going to be forever that you have it, but because people's needs and desires change all the time. So just think of that 3 to 5 year horizon when you're buying, and know that that'll probably be the time that you'll want to get another one.
Yeah, things are always changing. You might be getting new pets. You might be growing your family. Maybe you're a young couple and now you're having kids. You may be an older family and your kids are moving out and they don't camp with you as much. So your life over a 5-year period changes a lot, and that RV probably won't be the perfect fit throughout all your different changes. So if it's not your forever RV, don't be too upset. You can't plan for everything.
Yeah, and I think that that's pretty much it, Kenny. I think those were our top tips that we have for you to consider when you're looking for an RV, whether it's your first, second, or 10th. All these things apply. We want to also encourage everybody. We've done tons of interviews with people that, from rental companies to warranty companies to manufacturers, uh, go back and listen to some of those episodes with the people, and you can kind of get a feel for how passionate they are about what they do and how much they like the RV community, and, use that kind of as a guide too while you're looking. This company sounds like they are really great for the industry, and they really do care about what my opinions are, and maybe you wanna consider them over others just for that reason, because if they really do have a passion for it, they're gonna put forth the quality. So I would encourage you to go back and look at some of our previous episodes and, take a listen to some of those, particularly with the manufacturers, the rental companies, and the, warranty companies. So that's my advice. We would like to thank everybody for listening, and we would like to encourage you to subscribe and leave a review, or just click the like button on the platform you're listening to us on, and reach out to us with any questions you have. We're always happy to talk about RVing. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Battleborn Batteries. Like we said, Kenny and I love lithium batteries, and we love Battleborn Batteries because they are one of those companies that is very passionate about what they do and also passionate about customer service and the RV industry. They do a lot for the RV industry besides just sell us batteries. So we're really, really happy to be affiliated with them and really like their product. So you can go check them out as well. And until the next episode in 2 weeks, safe travels, everybody.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop in replacement for traditional lead acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed Wholesale Warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.